and welcome to SteamLUG Cast, Season 4, Episode 12. We are recording this on June the 10th, 2016. My name is Hero, and with me I have DerRidda.
Hello!
And Nemoder.
Hey there.
How about we start with what we've been playing recently? What have you been playing, DerRidda?
Actually, I have played a game for a change, and it has been Tomb Raider 2013, which I finally finished. And boy, is that a dumb mainstream game, but I somehow still had fun.
That's all that matters.
What about you, Nemoder?
A little bit of Dwarf Fortress again with the new versions out, and playing a whole bunch of Dota 2 with Hero the last few weeks here.
Indeed.
Failing miserably. What about you, Hero?
Well, as you said, failing miserably in Dota 2, but I must mention that we've been winning more than before the last cast, where we were on a, 3-day losing streak.
Slowly improving.
Yeah. In addition, just after the last cast, I also finished up Shadwin. I played through without killing anyone, which was kind of cool, and beat the game.
Would you recommend buying it?
I think so. I think it depends. It's very much... Some people might not enjoy it, but I thought it was pretty awesome. It's just a lot of the things they do is really different, and I think it's interesting, but some might find it repetitive or not interesting.
So it's pretty much a stealth game with some unique mechanics, I guess.
Yeah, well,
like you were saying, like the rope mechanics from Trine.
Yeah, the rope mechanics are definitely really cool, and the time mechanics where time freezes if you're not moving is interesting. But I also really enjoy a game that gives me the option to not hurt anyone. And that's what I did.
Very sneaky.
And the story, while it's not a huge part of it, is cool the way that it's presented. I think I had mentioned this before, but it's basically, in the loading screens, you hear dialogue between the main characters, and in the game, you hear the guards talking to each other, so you get a state of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, that's some depth, I imagine.
Yep, it's cool. I mean, usually before I snuck past a guard, I would first listen to what they might be talking about with their friend. Moving on to SteamLUG community stuff. For past events, we had No More Room in Hell on May 27th after the last cast. On the 28th, we had Speedrunners. Then on June 3rd, we played Dota 2, and on the 4th, we played Insurgency with the Day of Infamy mod.
That was a lot of fun. Day of Infamy is really great, as long as you only play it in checkpoint co-op mode.
It definitely was interesting. It was the second time I'd played it.
It's surprisingly harder than the base game in co-op, which you might not think because, hey, World War II, you play it mostly as the Americans, and the Germans had boat actions, you had all the automatics. No, it's kind of harder.
It's nice because generally playing the co-op Insurgency feels a little bit too easy sometimes, for me. But yeah, I like the challenge of playing in the Day of Infamy mod. As for the other past events, No More Room in Hell, I joined that for a little bit, and it's still No More Room in Hell. I mean, we walked around and died a lot and got infected and died a lot. But we didn't play the one mission that's like my least favorite because everything is just blackness. It's way too dark. So it was cool. Speedrunners, there was a few people that showed up that... It was only a few people, but we played for quite a while. And that game, it's cool because most of us were somewhat evenly skilled. There's one person who is quite a lot better, but it's a competitive platformer, basically. So you just have to run in front of the other people in a 2D platforming game. And with power-ups, like drops that you can use to either attack people or go faster. Stuff like that.
Like Blaze Rush? Except platformer instead of racing?
Yeah, you could compare it to that, because you are on just like a circuit. But in this case, you're jumping and sliding and ducking and using a grappling hook.
Yeah, okay.
Which the grappling hook definitely adds a lot more depth because timing that stuff correctly can push you ahead pretty far. But yeah, that's actually a good comparison. Then for Dota 2, we had for a while, I believe it was 7 people playing. We just had a private match going against each other. That was pretty fun.
Did the team with more players win?
I don't think that's the way it went every time. I don't quite remember. They were actually pretty balanced matches. I wasn't sure if it was going to work out very well because there were pretty big skill gaps.
Yeah.
But most of the time, the early and mid game was mostly seeming pretty balanced, and maybe towards the end of the mid game or at the end game is when it really threw to one side.
Typical Dota.
Right. But it was, that's way better than just one side smashing them the whole way.
Well, yeah.
Far more interesting.
Yeah, sad I missed that event. I was looking forward to it.
Which is why we shall have another at some time. In upcoming events, after this cast, we will have some distance action. Tomorrow on the 11th of June, we'll be playing some Stellaris. On the 17th, we are playing Sword Coast Legends, and then on the 18th, we are playing Payday 2.
In other community news, our very own Cheese is finishing up work on the Day of the Tentacle remastered port to Linux, and it's all progressing excitingly well.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that get polished up.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's a great classic, and it would be nice to have it on Linux without resorting to Scum, VM, or DOSBox or whatever.
Or Wine, yeah.
So, in Steam and Valve news, we have updates for Dota 2's Vulkan backend, which fixed flickering on some NVIDIA GPUs.
Yeah, so for me, when I first tried Vulkan, it was crashing when I was in the game. The flickering didn't bother me too much, but the crashing is kind of bad when you're in a matchmaking game. So I ended up turning it off. After this update, it actually fixed it for me, and most of the time that I've been playing for the past couple of weeks has been in Vulkan. Except in the past couple of days they added a new update, which apparently introduced some freezing in the Vulkan backend, so I had to turn it off again yesterday, I think it was. So that's unfortunate, but it's good they're continuing to work on that and make it better.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that stable.
SteamOS 2.80 beta has been released. Not many noticeable things, just version bumps and some bug fixes, but the big thing here is that Valve apparently is now shipping a AMD GPU Pro driver that is not officially released to the rest of the world by AMD. But you need a Bonaire GPU to actually have that work.
It's interesting because SteamOS, and a lot of it is based on older packages, except for all the graphics stuff, which is all pretty new. And it's nice that they are including AMD GPU, because for some people, that could be a lot better, and it's obviously the future of AMD drivers.
There have officially been over 500,000 Steam controllers sold, but that includes all of them in Steam machines, in Steam Links, and sold individually. And Ars Technica took that opportunity to consider Steam machines a failure.
I don't think they quite understand what SteamOS is trying to do.
Does anybody?
Well,
Valve does.
They do least of all.
Well,
that is a big number, but of course, if you're comparing this to traditional consoles, that's not that much. I don't really see Valve as thinking of it as a traditional console, though. They've always played the long game for everything they do. Hence Valve time.
Yeah, it's really meant to be a new kind of machine that isn't supposed to directly compete with consoles, and there are obviously some overlap between player base of consoles and what they're trying to sell, but it really is kind of its own thing. So it obviously didn't have a huge, massive marketing push when it started, like every other console has.
Yeah, but my thought about this is, are they actually retaining the people that have bought into Steam machines?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is like, okay, if they don't start off with lots of sales, maybe at least they are retaining the ones that are on Steam machines. But if they start collecting dust like Wii's back in the day, there is no long game to be played.
This is complete speculation, but I would say many people who have a Steam machine, it might be their secondary gaming platform that they would use only when they want to sit in their living room on the couch. But otherwise, they might play primarily on their normal desktop PC that's at their desk.
Well, also, the Steam machine is still basically just a computer. It's not like a console that you can't use for anything else. So
yeah, that's true.
Worst case is you can always repurpose it for whatever you want it to do. And imagine, of course, at some point the older ones are going to be retired as new models come out. But it's not like a console where you have to wait, so long before the next big version and then update all your games. And it's a kind of an evolving thing.
Right. It's the in-between of traditional PC gaming and consoles.
Yeah, I definitely think the big push with Vulkan, and we'll see probably more of this in October, that they're going to be trying to get more people to work with Vulkan and probably with Steam VR to promote that, and that's only going to help.
And the reason why they might be talking about it then is because on October 12th and 13th is when Steam Dev Days 2016 will take place.
Yes, after skipping a year, they are finally back. The scope is now much broader. They talk about developing on Windows, Mac, Linux, and SteamOS. They talk about VR and the Steam controller and Steam Link. But noticeably absent is Steam machines as a platform itself. I mean, they are not making them themselves, but it doesn't seem like they will be the focus of their hardware talks.
I think for hardware, they don't really need to cover the Steam machines as there's such variety, and even the most custom Steam machines are still standard PCs as far as most things go. But developing things to work nicely with the Steam controller, it's actually something they've gone over before in other talks, but I'd assume it would mostly be small optimizations you can make for your game, even if it doesn't have native Steam controller support, and then what you can do if you do want native. And of course, VR is something that a lot of developers have no experience in.
Yeah, and VR is apparently what Valve is currently totally winning at after Oculus burnt every bridge they crossed and then shed on the remains.
Seems like it, yeah. But they got the money to keep it going, so I'm sure they'll still be in the market.
Yeah, on that note, apparently HTC Vives are now shipping within 2 to 3 business days, constantly.
Yeah, when I ordered mine it was way faster than I expected, but in addition, they said that in some places they're going to be stocking them in stores, so it may soon be available for people to buy off a shelf. And also setting up a lot more demo locations, so if you're in a place that has one of the stores that they're using, I'm not sure if there's even any outside the US. I haven't looked at the list since they added those, but I know there's things like GameStops and Microsoft stores that should be having demos.
A friend of mine just ordered his recently, and he said it shipped in like 2 days, so yeah, that's over here in Germany, so...
Cool.
And I know what I will be doing next weekend, not this one.
So moving on to tech news, Unity is, I guess this is a new type of ordering their software for releasing your games, serves as a subscription.
Right, so if I understand it correctly, they are completely removing the ability to just pay once for a license to use the engine, and then having to pay again for major upgrades. Now they're going to go with just a software subscription, and then you get all the updates. There won't be any more major updates that you have to pay to upgrade to. And if you want to, there are ways to have more options, like the ability to use it without having to pay anymore, but that requires being subscribed already for 2 years. And you also won't get updates anymore. And some nebulous, talk to us if you want more.
Yeah, Enterprise, contact us. We will not post a price for Enterprise because that's how it works. Yeah, but looking at the lowest paid for tier, it's $35 per seat per month, which is terribly expensive if you compare to like Unreal Engine, which is super cheap. Basically is a commercial license for a company, as far as I know. I don't know. I don't understand why the engine that self-proclaimed to have democratized the entire world of games development suddenly de-democratizes it with such a price tag. This is not student affordable anymore, if you pay this per month, in my opinion.
Well, they still have the personal edition available, right?
Yeah, but there's always more features. It's not like, hey, you can't use this commercially, but otherwise it's the same. No, it's always more features with them, which can be a bummer. There might be something in there you need.
Well, I can kind of understand, a lot of the complaints have been people saying, well, we're on Unity 4, we'd like to go to 5 or whatever, but, we just can't afford to relicense it. Or new people coming in, looking at that and saying, well, if we start with this one, maybe the next one will come out and then we won't have the features. So I can kind of understand why maybe that would be enticing to people having a subscription instead.
Yeah, also having a subscription, not only having a subscription. Maybe some people would just like to pay once and get what they need.
Right. It's not, this isn't the worst thing to ever happen, but there's upsides and downsides.
Yeah.
Yeah, the downside definitely is one that's inherent to proprietary software. You might have exactly the perfect thing you need and it gets yanked under your butt and there's nothing you can do about it. Instead of giving $35 per month to Unity, give $35 per month to Godot Engine.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, much better.
Well, of course, a lot of that just comes down to what you're familiar with, and if you've been developing with Unity for a long time, then you're probably going to stick with it.
I know that's the case, but for me that's always been such a weak argument.
Well, speaking of Unreal, version 4.12 of the Unreal Engine has been released.
Yeah, so one of the things that I thought was notable in this release is they added support for OSVR for the VR backend, which means that you don't have to use SteamVR, you can use the open source OSVR server, which I think is pretty cool, and don't expect anything anytime soon, but I've been attempting to get OSVR to work on Linux with the Vive. But yeah, not having to be locked into that is cool, and also the previously shown VR editor is now in this release, so if for some reason you wanted to look into the world in VR and be able to edit objects, move them around, resize them, and so on, you can now do so. Speaking of things optimized for VR, AMD has announced their new RX 480 graphics card, which is basically their low-cost VR-ready hardware. So their goal here is to have the cheapest possible GPU that can still run the relatively intensive VR games.
Yeah, the 480X is supposedly only $200, but that's crazy Yankee advertising of no taxes added yet. But again, that's a very attractive price tag, and while everybody always gushes about the high-end cards like the recently announced 1080 and 1070 by Nvidia, this is a price point most people will actually buy. This is what most gamers can afford when they need to.
Yeah, and potentially significantly lowering the barrier to trying out in VR.
There recently was a developer conference about Vulkan held in the UK, and the videos are now up for Vulkan Dev Days. It's quite a few quite long talks, 40 minutes or so per talk sometimes. And yeah, if you want to get into Vulkan development, maybe take a look at those.
Indeed.
I haven't looked at it yet. Is it mostly technical, or is it more general?
I haven't had time to look into it myself, but it seems like the topics are command buffers and pipelines, feeding your shader, Vulkan subpasses, 8 swaps chains unchained. Well, say that fast 10 times in a row.
It definitely sounds like it's more worthwhile for technical adaptation, especially coming from OpenGL or anything else.
In general gaming news, GOG has launched their Connect program, which allows you to connect some of your games from your Steam account to your GOG account for a limited amount of time.
This is very interesting. It's the way they state it is you already own the game, why have to buy it twice? And that's a cool concept. It's not a massive amount of titles that are available, but it's still a neat system.
It's free. It's Defenders, Crest, Door Kickers, and Kona.
Okay.
At the moment.
Right, and they said that they're adding more.
And you only get to keep them for 2 days. Oh, I have misunderstood the system, so they are rotating out in 2 days, but you get to keep them permanently. Now this makes much more sense, and I'm taking back all my foolish comments about it. So this basically keeps you engaged, because you always have to check back, and it attaches you to the platformer. Now it's smart and of use to the customer.
Yeah, it's just especially nice to have your game available from more than one site in case you can't access one for whatever reason. It'd be even nicer if they could release a Linux client for GOG Galaxy.
Yeah.
And The Witcher 3 while they're on it.
Hey, there you go.
I will never stop.
Please, don't touch anything. Has been released for SteamOS and Linux. Looks like an interesting game, kind of like Papers, Please, I guess. Either of you looked at that?
I have. It's a game about touching things.
Well, the art style at least is very much like Papers, Please, but I have not looked at the gameplay.
Yes, but it is a puzzle game, not a Papers, Please, whatever genre that is game.
Depression Simulator. No, definitely a cool game though, so yeah, that sounds neat.
Apparently it also has 25 different endings, which is pretty crazy. Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide Definitive Editions are now available. I was looking into this a little further, and it seems as though they're using the same engine as what they used in Dying Light, or at least similar technology. So that's where a lot of the new graphical improvements came from, is just an updated engine that's a lot more capable than what they had before.
I hope it is more stable than before, because I personally had a lot of crashing problems with Dying Light whenever I used the Steam runtime, it was actually quite good when I disabled the Steam runtime, but what's the point of having that equalizing layer of libraries if a game crashes run against them?
Yeah. I got Dead Island Riptide, the definitive edition, because if you own the previous one, then they give you a pretty hefty discount, and I figured might as well try it. So I ran it, and it worked fine, but I didn't go very far. I basically got to the first part that allows you to actually control a character, and I didn't notice any issues at all, except, well, in the menus the mouse seemed to be pretty slow, like the sensitivity was messed up. But it seemed like everything was working fine, but I did not play very far. Nor did I test multiplayer, which is the one thing that really bothers me in Dying Light, that Linux clients cannot join any multiplayer game.
Yeah, and that's a bit more important with the classic Dead Islands. They were much more focused on multiplayer.
Yeah. So Life is Strange, which we had previously known had Linux depots, now is on the Feral radar and listed as coming to Linux, which has also been confirmed in the comments on an article that it is officially coming to Linux by Feral. So that's cool, and it seemed pretty likely before, but it's nice to have that official confirmation. Brigador has been released, which is a really cool looking top-down mech game. One of the interesting things is that everything is destructible. You can shoot literally everything on the map and destroy it and walk through it or whatever. It has a bunch of different vehicles and weapons that you can use, and has a cyberpunk style, more of the dystopian end on that. The port for Oxenfree has been released. So yeah, it's an adventure game. I was interested in this when they first released the video for it. It seems the presentation seemed interesting to me, but it's now out on Linux.
So it's kind of a present-day adventure game?
Yeah.
It's got a nice art style anyway.
And the dialogue is pretty cool, in my opinion. From what I've seen, at least.
Torment, Tides of Numenera, the big Kickstarter game by In Exile, has been delayed and is now going to a publisher, which in itself is not that bad, but damn, they probably ate more money than they needed. Or need more money than they had. Apparently, the Kickstarter update says the game now has more text than the entirety of the Bible.
That's a good benchmark.
And they also opened up the beta to all backers, but since there are no Linux or Mac versions for the beta yet, it's not really useful to us people here. But yeah.
Well, I wouldn't expect them to hold out on Linux users for too long, considering their past.
Considering their past, they were actually pretty late with Wasteland 2 coming to Linux.
Yeah, but wasn't that one of the earlier Unity games that had a Linux port?
Yes. Well, it took so long to come out that it was actually quite unearly.
By the time it actually did, right?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be.
But as everybody knows, unless you don't, which makes you either new to the gaming industry or very naive, if there's a release date on a game on Kickstarter or anywhere that's out more than 6 months, it's not going to be the release date. That is the time by which you are guaranteed the game is not going to be out.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
There is a native launcher for Eve. But before I get all excited, it's only the launcher that is native code that is actually running as an ELF binary. The thing downloads Wine for Eve configured for your pleasure and ready to run, which is nice. Would have been nice if Eve itself would have been native, but I guess it's better than figuring out all that stuff by yourself.
This is mostly official, is it not? And does this mean that they...
Nope.
Okay, it was just a dev doing it on the side then, right?
Exactly, just like that. It's like big in there. It's by no means official. It's his private side project, and he does it because he likes to, which is a nice service.
Right, it's a nice convenience for people. And if it works, then cool.
So you get to your Space War spreadsheet of dethroning Goon Squad quicker than before when you're on Linux. Is that still topical, or is that war over yet? I don't pay attention that much.
I imagine it never ends. Still, it's nice to have them show interest in Linux again. It seemed like after they ditched CDGA way back in the day that they were done with it, but still a lot of people playing it in Wine, so it's nice that they made a launcher for it.
Well, this is how a lot of Linux ports seem to have started, which is just somebody on the side doing their own thing to get it working for Linux users. Whether it gets official support or not is kind of iffy most of the time. That was a while ago that was really happening a lot. Nowadays, engines support Linux, and that's a little better.
It's still encouraging, though, if they, make a new engine or a new game, that they might be a little more interested next time.
Oh yeah, it's cool. And it just reminds me of reading somewhere a developer saying, like, every single developer, on PC at least, is thinking about Linux. It's just whether they actually decide to do it or not, just because there's been so much publicity around it since what's been happening in the last few years.
Yeah. So there's been some hints that Rocket League might actually be getting close to release, but I guess we'll believe it when we see it.
Right, the developer said, or a developer said on the Steam forums, that they need to do a little bit more polish and test for cross-platform properly working and some other stuff, and then we may have the game soon, which is cool, and it's nice to get updates even if it's not released.
Yeah.
Virtual Programming has announced that Overlord 1 and 2 are coming to Linux soon. It was kind of an odd announcement because basically it's a video on their YouTube channel that just says coming soon. And I don't even know if they said it anywhere else except for on that video. But while we knew it was being ported, we now know that it is coming sooner. There's a new game available on early access on Steam for Linux, which is Defect, a space game where you basically build a ship to complete a mission, and then, if I remember correctly, your crew will always, mutiny, I guess, and take your ship, so then you have to fight against your ship. So the idea is you want to build it in a way that you can defeat the stuff that you have to, but also have flaws so that you can exploit it when you know you have to go against it.
Tricky.
Yeah, so you're always trying to beat yourself at your own game. You have to come up with new ways that you can get around your old design, or make sure your old design has those flaws.
That sounds like a pretty unique concept.
Our very own Flibberty Jibo has brought us another port. This time it's in beta form. It's Salt and Sanctuary, apparently a very popular 2D Dark Souls-like Metroidvania, which looks very interesting, and I personally have completely missed.
Very, very dark-looking game.
Yeah. Which is appropriate, and I think that description is pretty good. A Dark Souls-like Metroidvania. The very dark style is definitely reminiscent of the aesthetic in Dark Souls.
Yeah. If you already have it and want to get into the beta, I believe the beta password is Flibbit is bad at Souls games.
So it definitely sounds like he needs more playtesters.
Quite possibly.
Speedrunners from Hell has a Linux demo available. The game is not yet released, but you can get the demo from itch, and it's a first-person speedrunning game that makes me think of Deadcore, but it doesn't look that similar, and you don't have a gun that does crazy stuff, but you're running around in this sort of demonic metal place. You can think of it like Brutal Legend, but with a lot more lava and red.
It does look like the free demo is available on Steam as well.
Yeah, I'm currently downloading it just to test it.
Ah, yes.
It has speedrun in the name, so I will never ever even launch it.
Oh, that's a good way to test it, is just to make sure it downloads, right?
I will even go as far as look into the folder to see if there are ELF binaries or Windows binaries. And it's an ELF, so yes, the demo is also on Steam.
Hooray.
Speedrunning game deleted.
That was fast.
The very recent and very new Hitman 2016, that episodic game everybody seems to be mad about, has repos popping up in SteamDB.
Yeah, I guess this is part of the recent trend of Square Enix showing support to Linux gamers.
Remind me, what has actually shipped by Square Enix?
Well, Tomb Raider.
That is Square Enix?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting. If they haven't announced anything, then just wait and see, I guess. But could be a good sign.
It also has Mac repos. I mean, this quite looks like a feral job from my point of view.
Yeah, and they've also brought over the Hitman Go game to the PC Definitive Edition, which is in Unity, so it's not as big of an effort, but and they approved that, and obviously we already have Tomb Raider.
But again, this is never a guaranteed port of anything.
Right.
So, we got a bunch of summer sales coming up. Actually, a bunch of them are already in effect. GOG has pretty good discount on a lot of games. I'm looking at 3 of them right now that I'll probably pick up next day or so. Stuff like Soma and Hotline Miami 2, games that I've had on my wish list for a long time. And we've got Paradox has a summer sale for a bunch of their... They don't have, I think, Stellaris on there yet, but definitely, Crusader Kings 2 and a lot of their other popular Linux games.
Yeah, which makes sense because Stellaris just came out, but...
Yeah.
I think that the city game, what's that called again?
Skylines?
Yeah, City Skylines. That's in there.
Yeah, they've got some sales on there, and for some of the DLC for it too, yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so definitely if you've kind of been curious about those, check them out while they're on sale. Humble's got another bundle up. It's not entirely Linux, but it's got some good titles on there you might be interested in. And I believe F1 is now on sale on Games Republic, so if you're looking for a good deal on that, check it out.
Oh, I didn't know about that one.
And it's possible Steam might do their big summer sale soon. There's always rumors of that. It's always kind of been a contentious point if everybody waiting for super cheap games is good for development or not, but it definitely increases sales, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there was a leak that Steam Summer Sale starts on the 23rd of this month, so yeah, I don't know if it's worth to wait for it. If you find a good deal, better grab it where you can, as long as that particular store supports Linux actively and potential third-party porters get their monies.
Yeah, I think it's still overall a good thing. I mean, a lot of that is games people would probably not buy anyway, and if it can bring interest in and they find something they really like, they'd be more likely to buy future versions or expansions or whatever.
I usually tend to use Steam sales to buy extra keys for other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like they're toning it down a bit. In years past, they've done some crazy sales, 90% off a lot of games, and it seemed like kind of a ripoff for developers. But the winter sale wasn't quite that dramatic, but they still had some good deals.
The past few sales, they've been trying to make it, it seems like a little more friendly. It's hard to say, but they've definitely been making changes.
Yeah, the fact that we are now on a permanent maximum discount, that they pretty much drop these dailies and blitz sales and they just rotate out the front page to give more coverage out. But every discount you see, it's going to be the final discount unless they just change something last minute again. We will see, but I guess it will be that kind of deal again.
Yeah, and I really do like the changes that they're making. It seems to be not only more friendly to developers, but also to the end user. You don't have to wait until it's in a flash sale and otherwise buy it on the last day or whatever happens.
Yeah.
That's just silly, like trying to delay your purchase just because. And I understand why they did it, but this is a lot nicer if they continue to make these styles of changes.
And whenever you think some games never come out of early access, Cree has now left it. The kinda Terraria Starbound-like Metroidvania game is out of early access, reviewed very positive on Steam, and it's only like less than 13 euros. I have kept an eye on that, but I have taken the stance to not buy early access titles anymore, so this is not early access anymore.
And it's been on Linux for a long time.
Yeah, it's for quite long in the early access phase. But yeah, it's never really blown up, but it seems to be popular enough. Like, all the recent reviews I can see on the first page, yeah, all of them are thumbs up. And all of the other ones as well, that are not the most recent ones.
Yeah, it's nice to see a refinement of the genre that's kind of spawned out of that 2D crafting style game. And definitely nice to see some that are actually being finished, as opposed to the ones that have been early access for 5 years now.
Well, this one has been early access for a couple of years, but
it's out now.
They are done.
Well, at least done with the early access. They might still be working on it, not sure.
Yeah, this seems like the game you could work on for a long time.
Well, on to crowdfunding news. We have a couple Kickstarters. One is called Zed, and it is by the artist, I guess, or one of the artists that worked on Original Mist, and that's kind of interesting. And you can kind of see some of the style promised in a lot of the preview stuff they have on there. And it does have a downloadable demo. I have not yet checked it out, but I believe it's Unreal 4 engine and looks pretty interesting.
I'm so damaged by zombie games that I just instantly believed this would also be a silly zombie game just by the name. Like, Zed, this is now the only thing it can refer to, it's zombies.
No. This looks much more interesting than a typical zombie game.
This looks spacey.
It's really got that Myst vibe to it, kind of imaginative and out there.
Yeah, at least the aesthetic.
Yeah, but perhaps they could have picked a better name, but maybe they can restore the word Zed to us and it will no longer mean only zombies.
One can hope.
There's also another game called Transmission in Kickstarter that looks pretty interesting. It's kind of a mix between an adventure game and a Zelda-like, and got some really nice graphics.
Yeah, and the story in that is also pretty intriguing. It's like you wake up with no memory of what happened on a mysterious planet, and you're trying to figure out the mystery.
It's almost kind of like the vibe from The Fall, where you're that same kind of character that's trying to figure out what they're doing. But yeah, it looks pretty good. And it also has a pretty neat hand-drawn art style. Yeah.
But a very stern funding goal with $84,000 for a game with no name recognition. Let's hope they make it.
Yeah, I mean, what they've shown so far proves that they've at least, got a solid start on it.
But they had to quote Kotaku twice in their teaser, which I do not approve of. So, but I guess this brings us to the end. Maybe with a closing thought. We are not going to be around till after E3 is done, so what's everybody's expectation? Mine is bugger all.
That is kind of what the usual trend is at the really big game conferences, is not a whole lot for Linux users. We just get a consistent stream of other stuff all the time.
Yeah, I have pretty much zero interest in E3. I mean, that's just pretty much Nintendo and Sony, right?
And Microsoft and other big companies, and I'll pay attention to it, and if anybody mentions Linux, that's cool, but I don't expect a whole lot, and that's okay. Actually, there might be an announcement soon about Arma 3 and their new expansion. Well, it probably won't say anything about when an updated version of the port will come out. It's still something that I'll probably pay attention to.
So, I guess now we're done here. Thanks everybody for listening in. If you have feedback for us, you can reach us via email at cast@steamlug.org, via IRC on Freenode, we are the channel SteamLUG, on Twitter @SteamLUG, on Google plus SteamLUG, and on YouTube we are the channel SteamLUG. Again, thanks for listening in, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
For our past events, this seems wrong. I need to check this really quick.
Everything is in order. Everything is well. Everything is as it should be. Do not question the established order.
It's wrong. Okay.
Oh, did we miss one?
Yep, that's okay. Anyway.
Okay. It's awfully silent.